Hello and welcome to Frontline Conversations. I'm your host, Gowhar Geelani. In this program, we are going to discuss an important topic, and that is why are Kashmir's lakes vanishing or shrinking? A recent report by the Comptroller Auditor General said that more than 500 lakes have either disappeared or receded in Kashmir. Is the clock ticking for Kashmir as far as its water bodies are concerned? Is there an ecological crisis? To discuss all of this, we have a panel. To my immediate right is Dr. Muslim Jan, who has headed the Kashmir University's Department of Public Relations, also at the University of Kashmir, and she has also edited Media Times and been heading the Kashmir Institute at the University of Kashmir. And she is also concerned about environment as far as the media reporting is concerned. To her immediate right is Ms. Furqan Jan. And Ms. Furqan Jan studies economics and is very much interested in environmental topics and is concerned about what happens to Kashmir's water bodies. Mr. Mehbubul Haq, Pirzada Mehbubul Haq, who teaches environment and is also very vocal about environmental issues. Welcome all. Thank you for being part of Frontline Conversations.
Thanks.
So first, my question is to Pirzada Mehbubul Haq. Since you have been a mentor, you're also an academic and you teach environment. So I want to understand from you that perhaps you have also gone through the report, which has been very, very disturbing in more ways than one. What are the reasons, apart from the human greed and other interventions at the human and community level, like, for example, pollution or encroachment or urbanization, but what are the scientific reasons that Kashmir or Jammu and Kashmir is losing its water bodies at such a pace?
Thank you, Gawasap. First of all, this CAG report is, I think it's not as surprising to me as it appears to be because, there have already been reports in past and there have already been reports internationally as well that half of the important lakes across the world are shrinking. So this phenomena is not novel to Jammu and Kashmir. However, since, considering, given the fragile, the fragile geology and this topography of Jammu and Kashmir, it makes it, more surprising. So this CAG report is particularly a performative audit, or we can also call it as environmental audit. It basically, estimates the schemes that have been provided from time to time with respect to, say, for example, conservation of these lakes. Have these schemes performed over the period of time or not? What has been the intervention of the government? So this is not basically a scientific report per se. So we cannot basically, calculate this as a scientific, report. So we have to see it from a financial or the performative perspective. Leaving that aside, what's important to understand is that before, we talk about lakes, the geology of Jammu and Kashmir is very important. We live in Himalayan areas, right? So this Himalaya, the entire belt of Himalaya, ranging from Pakistan till Tibet and Bhutan, Myanmar even, this is basically young fold mountain, right? So for young fold mountains, these are basically young and they're growing. Unlike the mountains or the hills that we have in Peninsular India down south. So for this young fold mountain, I'm sure you might have heard about this thing that the height of Mount Everest increasing by 1 centimeter or something. So this young fold mountain is continuously in process of building. So when this is in process of building, so we can't afford to have an alteration with it, in as much as you can do the alteration, say, for example, with Peninsular India, because that's old landmass. And then when we come down, when we understand this phenomenon of lakes in Jammu and Kashmir, these lakes are fed by glaciers, right? And therefore, this is an integrated process. Jammu and Kashmir is a tourist place. We call it a tourist place. For example, let's take an example of Pahalgam. When tourist footfall increases in Pahalgam, along with the increase in the tourist footfall, it leads to increase in the carbon footprint.
Yes.
It's different mechanisms, the cars, vehicles, other things, etc. I'll tell you the example. When the footprint increases, carbon footprint increases, it increases the soot, the dust content, layman's language, the dust content, it increases the carbon content. So what happens, this carbon content or the soot content, when it goes into the wind, it comes down and settles on the glaciers. The third, this whole area, the Himalayan belt is called a third pole, right? So this rests on the glaciers. When this dust rests on the glaciers, it eventually changes the color from extreme white to somewhat, blacky or, somewhat, colorful. So what happens, snow has a high albedo, right? It reflects the light. When it reflects light, but when the dust falls on this, so rather than reflecting the light that it used to, it will absorb the light. When it absorbs the light, it will lead to the melting. When this melting process happens, it will lead to the breaking of moraines, it will lead to the breaking of dams or those lakes that are formed by these glaciers. When these, when these glaciers melt and then they come heavily down in the form of glacial lake outburst floods, which we have seen in Skim, which we have seen in Uttarakhand, which we have seen in recently Kishtwar as well.
Cloudbursts also, for
Cloudbursts as well. So these phenomena are not natural. And I told you again, as I told you earlier, that this ecology of Jammu and Kashmir is very fragile. So you can't say that this is this process is completely, natural. There is a human intervention, as I said. This is one of the examples. And then when these floods come down, so for example, if you have Jhelum, Jhelum had its area, which we know that it has shrunk over the period of time, or Dal had its area which has shrunk over the period of time, or Wular had its area which has shrunk over.
I'll come to that. Because I want to focus on one particular issue at a time. I understand what you're also talking about, the carrying capacity of the water bodies. But let's go to Dr. Muslim Jan. Dr. Muslim, you understand media since you have been associated with the Media Education Research Center at the University of Kashmir, and also closely following what is being printed in the newspapers or the digital media. What is your analysis? How is environment being reported by the local newspapers? Is there so much of awareness? Is the time given to environment reporting as it deserves, or do you want something more? What has been your observation?
Thank you, Gowhar. Thank you so much for involving me in this panel discussion. It's very concerning for me at the same time because as the women issues are concerned to me a lot, so this worries me a lot at the same time, the environmental issues, because we live in this system. We are part of this system. So when you talk of the local media, especially the print journalism you're talking about, referencing to the newspapers, it feels a sad story of the newspapers that there are no pages dedicated to the environment. You can find advertisements over there. I think there should be 3-4 reporters having different beats about the environment, like lakes, conservation of forests, biodiversity. There are so many issues in the environment where we are concerned about and which damages our whole ecosystem. So I think the newspapers, all print media, including, in fact, the social media, you have so many vloggers who are reporting just, which is not even concerning any kind of society at the same time. Like some theft is somewhere, you make a big news out of it. And environment is where you're living, you're breathing in and out the same atmosphere, same climate, same air, day in and day out, which is giving you so many problems, which is giving you health issues just because it has not been reported daily on the daily basis. Yes, you have.
Are you saying that this reporting about environment is episodic or even driven?
Absolutely.
When something big happens, so there is
Absolutely.
reportage?
It is. You cannot. These are certain issues where you cannot be a symbolic kind of a thing. You cannot. You have to have a day-to-day exercise.
And specialized beat.
Absolutely, you have to have a specialized. No doubt, many journalists have really worked, but
In
it is a
individual
very
capacity.
individual capacities. Definitely yes, but it cannot be just 2 people or 3 people cannot be giving a kind of that kind of an burden. The whole, they cannot cover the whole kind of an environment. So it has to be a full page dedicated to the environment. Even if you don't have any day news, but it has to be an
environment. Daily reporting.
Environment has to be a daily reporting. Another thing.
Dr. Muslim Jan, I will interrupt you here because we also want to hear views from our young generation. Furqan Jan, as I said, is very much interested in environment, and you're an economics student. So you tell me, when you converse with your friends, when you go to the university or when you go for travels, what are the conversations? Is there conversation about environment, how to preserve our ecology, how to preserve our forests? What are the conversations about? Does environment dominate the conversations, or is it just a one-off thing?
Thank you so much, Mr. Gowhar. So I'd like to begin with that this is the most paramount the thing of most paramount importance right now among our generation, because we usually in 2000s, when you people were studying, when your generation was studying, it was a future thing. But right now we are living it. It is a present for us. It is not a future anymore. It is present. We are living in this situation right now. So definitely these things have been imbibed in us since long. In school, 100 मैं से 90 assemblies, they used to be about environment. So we are aware, but what lacks is action. We are not put at the forefront. I would like to see my generation put at the forefront, like this CAG report that we just had. It is a bombshell of a report. And what we see our elders doing is just discussing the report here and there. We have fragmented responsibilities across departments. So there is no concrete steps being taken. You expect us to be aware of it, but what next? Do you expect us to work about it? Because you have clearly failed to.
Mr. Mehboob, these lakes are also home to aquatic biodiversity, and there are a lot of people whose livelihood also depends on these lakes. For example, if you go to the Dal Lake in Srinagar, or if you talk about the Wular Lake there, and Anchar Lake, which used to have chestnuts, water chestnuts, lotus stem, and also fish. But now, how to strike a balance between livelihood and also, ensuring that this biodiversity remains intact. And then the other point that you were mentioning earlier about the carrying capacity of water bodies.
So see, Gausa, basically the thing is that, these lakes or wetlands, they have their own ecosystem. The ecosystem independent of ecosystem that we are living in, independent of. So what happens basically, a lake has a catchment area, right? Which drains, water from, say, from a forest or a vegetation area or, forest area, which gets into these lakes. They are actually reservoirs. So what happens when the forest cover has gone or the deforestation has happened at a large scale? Rather than the soil, those plants or those forest cover would, keep the water intact here in the forest already. What it happens is that when the forest cover is gone, it brings with it the mud, the slits, and everything. What is
Soil erosion also happens.
soil erosion actually? So what it ultimately does is this whole gets accumulated in the, say, for example, Dal Lake or a Wular Lake. And what happens? There are when I say that there's an ecosystem independent of ours, there's a photic zone and aphotic zone in a lake. Photic zone means that the sunlight can penetrate up to a certain extent, and then there starts the aphotic zone. What happens when we bring that, when this mud and sludge comes into this lake ecosystem, it accumulates. What happens? There's algal bloom, or we call there's a growth of plants. You see a lot of weeds growing.
Yes.
So it may on the face of it may look nice, but it's not. It's called the process of eutrophication, which is very bad for the health of the
Unwanted grass. Yeah.
So how this happens, why this happens is basically, and what this leads to actually, this leads to the increase in DOD and COD, biological oxygen demand and chemical oxygen demand. So say, for example, if BOD and COD increases in our case, we'll suffocate to death. Similar thing happens to the aquatic system, the ecosystem that exists in lakes. They suffocate to death because of this mud that comes in.
That's why we had these reports of dead fish from the Wular Lake.
This process is also called the aging of lakes. So, but the thing is that, this aging of lakes is happening so faster that these lakes may die before they had to die actually. They live their own life. But because, now that give your question, which is very important, how to strike a balance between.
Yeah. Also, because I think that's also very important. I was reading one of the articles written by Naqib Saab, Khurshid Naqib, who was heading also the Lauda that used to take care of. Now the name has been changed. Yeah, now it's LMC. So he mentions that earlier the area of the Dal Lake used to be 24 square kilometers, and now it's been reduced to like 11 point something. Nearly half of it's lost already. So there are these floating gardens for tourists. There are these houseboats, which looks very attractive to the eye. But is it good for the lake?
It's absolutely not. I mean, I'll tell you something. It's very important that apart from, the shrinking of lakes, what happens when you have a Dal and then you have, this lively, these houseboats or the tourism thing happening at a scale that's unsustainable for the Dal. What happens? There is increase in waste. For example, there are no treatment plants. They are literally dysfunctional. I would say across the country. If they were not dysfunctional, we would not have Gazipur landfill in Delhi in a city. So what happens basically, this waste gets into this but the Dal ecosystem. You have encroachments, because when the shrinking happens, the water recedes and then somebody comes and grabs the land. So basically, when you see it from a political end, this is a kind of populistic measure that all the political parties, I guess, they feel like, if we kind of act on this, it might harm our political processes. Leaving that apart, what's important,
So you're saying that this is also a vote bank kind of a
Yeah.
thing for.
I'll tell you one thing very important also. When we say that personal is political, I'll say environment is also political. More political than the personal thing. So it's very important to understand. So while striking the balance between the livelihood and to
Preserving.
conserving the lakes, it's important. For example, when the people who are fishing or extracting the
Lotus stem, yeah, water chestnuts.
water chestnuts extra from the lake, they are doing it through a manual process. There's no heavy machinery. So basically, they are the part and parcel of the ecosystem. They're helping you to maintain that BOD and COD. Basically, when they remove that chestnut, it helps to maintain ecosystem. But when you do it a large scale differently, then it of course reduces the balance. It destabilizes the balance. What's important to understand is, as she mentioned, that the departments are working in silos. For example, I'll tell you an example.
So I will come to that later, because I know it's a very important question. I'll ask that separately about the mandate. Who actually governs which water bodies. We'll come to that. Ma'am Muslim Jan, you tell us, because you're also part of the civil society in Kashmir, so you take part in several debates on so many issues. Is environment part of your discussions in your groups, and what should civil society and what are the responsibilities at the community level to actually wake up and realize that we are facing an ecological crisis right now?
I think I feel very sorry on that front, because I should use the word we. It's a shared responsibility, basically. It's a government, at the same time civil society. Each individual, communities, corporates, every individual is responsible. Media, everybody, corporates, communities, individuals are responsible for saving the biodiversity and the environment. So when the government makes it political on certain issues, even the civil society does not play its role effectively. Because the point, I'll tell you one thing. You have Friday sermons every Friday.
In mosques, yeah.
In the mosques. I have not seen any khatib, any Maulvi, any imam taking it an issue for 6 months, that environment should be our core issue for these 6 months or for these 3 months every Friday. Because, nobody wants to touch it collectively, while as it is an ethical obligation for each one of
So you are saying clergy and sermonizers also have a role to make it a point that in their mandatory Friday
Absolutely.
sermons, they should talk about environment.
Absolutely.
So this brings me to another point that one of the very famed saints from Kashmir, Sheikhul Alam, which we lovingly call Sheikh Nuruddin. And in one of his poetic verses, he said, which is in Kashmiri, "An posh teli ilwan posh,"
right.
which means if you preserve your forests, that means you will preserve your grain.
I
You
will
will
make
preserve
one point here. I recently visited one place. I have just heard first time the name of that place. That is Palmadan. You should see the vandalization of the natural resources over there. You don't find trees. The trees are being, it is being so mercilessly
Deforestation happening.
deforestation has happened, and you can see the kind of carcasses of the animals over there
Lying there.
So you can see the water is polluted. So I'm not against anyone, because the tourists have to come. The nomads have to go, because they have to feed their animals or whatever. But point is that everybody has a responsibility to save the same nature for the future generations, and rightly this girl has said, that it is the present problem now. It is not for the future. It's not the past. We are living in a very suffocated atmosphere now. As even Mahbub Sahib has said that how the glaciers are behaving now. So it is all because when you are breathing bad air, it has so many health issues. So you have children who have bronchitis. You have cancers, which is because you are using the water. The dirty water. You can see the Sindh where you have the garbage of diapers on the. Recently, I saw the social media post. Where are those communities who are living there? And at the same time, the government is equally responsible giving the permission of any corporate, any agency, whether it is security, whether it is other agencies, any agency to use these embankments, water embankments near. Because where will the wastage go? It goes directly to the water.
So
it is
let
polluting
me
the
bring,
whole
yeah,
system.
I got it. Let me bring in Furqan again. Furqan, you live almost in the heart of Srinagar's downtown. And there used to be a very famous lake, Anchar Lake. Now we see its remnants. And now it's very close to the Anchar Lake. There's this Achan, the dumping site. So as a someone from Srinagar, as a Srinagarite, what does it make you feel that there used to be a lake, now there is a dumping site? How do you respond to this?
It is a very sorry state that 123 acres of land has been turned into a dumping site. So, and this dumping site, we'll say that where will the waste go? What will we do with the waste? But there is something called as segregation of waste and treatment of waste, which has absolutely failed in Kashmir. There is no treatment as such of waste, and we people have not even heard about a term called segregation of waste. That you have to put your wet waste into one bin, that you have to put your dry waste in another, that you have to put plastic separately. Nothing of that sort happens here, and that has turned this achar into a landfill now. Achar is gone. The all the toxins and everything, whenever it rains, all the toxin from the dump site, it seeps into achar and it's gone. So as a localite, as a person living in Srinagar, there is often this conception that whoever lives around this Haval, Naushara and Sora area, they often face problems that in matrimonial issues. They face matrimonial issues that whenever someone comes with the hand and etc., they are not given the rishta. They are refused on the basis that they live there, they'll carry diseases. They have
Usually it has affected the matchmaking also.
it
Yeah.
has affected a matchmaking. This is how alarming the environmental concern is. It is not a separate issue. It pertains to
Social,
every
yeah.
aspect of your life. It hampers every aspect of your life. A thing as marriage has been affected.
And linked to environment.
Yes, a link to environment. So we should not even, there is not even touching.
Mehboob, Birzada Mehboob, I want to also understand from you, because you understand the earth science also, and there is this problem of mandate also. Like, for example, lakes and water, works, it used to look after the Dal lakes, and then at another lake there is forest department involved, at another lake there is irrigation department involved, at some other lake there is some other department involved. So then it becomes very easy for these departments also to pass the buck, that this is not our concern, this is the concern of forest department, and forest department will say this is not our concern, this is the concern of irrigation department. So how to bring synergy amongst these departments? Or is there a need to have one body responsible for regulating these lakes? And then another important question about, you mentioned tourism. Are we facing a crisis of over-tourism? Is there a need of regulating tourism as well, or pilgrimage?
Before I answer your first question, there was this professor from Delhi who once told me, this is not a nice example, but he once told me jokingly that, whenever, during the tumultuous period in Jammu and Kashmir, there used to be, time when complete Kashmir was shut, and then there would be no tourists. So it would allow you a breathing space to regenerate. Unfortunately, leaving that aside about tourism. So I'll tell you example about this thing, this site, working in silos, there is no silent synergy. First of all, I think, the officers, those who are staying in these departments, whether it is revenue department, whether it's, the agriculture department, housing and urban department, other departments as well. I think it's very important that these are not specialists. These are journalists. That's very important. Our whole process is bureaucracy laden, which we need to undo. What's important is to rope in or outsource the experts and scientists. Academia cannot do enough. You need to have experts and scientists who can actually, give you the proper results. One of the scathing indictment in this report was that there were funds available, but the
Utilization.
department said that we don't have a
Or underutilized, they were not utilized.
right. So I'll tell you the example, one very important example. Besides this, working in silos, there's this Char Dham project going on in Uttarakhand since 2016. They are connecting Badrinath, Yamuna, Gangotri, and the other one, the four they're connecting. So Uttarakhand or Himachal Pradesh or Jammu and Kashmir, they have a same topology or this topography because we share the Himalayan belt. So this project was started in 2016. For projects exceeding 100 kilometers, you need environmental impact assessment report. Very important. Without it, you cannot proceed. What was done? This project, which is probably running into some 900 kilometers or some 800 kilometers, it's a 12,000 crore project, mind you. So this project was divided into 53 projects, bringing down one project to below 100. So it was environmental impact assessment was done away. And then there's one other aspect. When you are constructing roads or projects in border areas, you have to take border security measures or something like that, which has been done away with in 2012. It was that law or rule was used to allow this project to go through. And we saw what happened to Joshima. This was a report run at Frontline only in 2023. They had a huge essay on this entire process, what is happening in Uttarakhand. So for example, if something's happening in Uttarakhand, you can't say that will not happen in Jammu and Kashmir. Because if something happens in, Iran, Iraq, that will impact Kashmir as well, Jammu and Kashmir, because, we have Western disarmament. So we can't think of that.
We live in isolation.
It's not
Yes.
politically, otherwise, you can't segregate environment. You can think of many things, but environmentally, you are not separate. So what happens is, when you basically bypass for the sake of populism, for the sake of rhetoric, for the sake of, whatever, political agendas you have, you are bypassing the environment laws. What are you actually doing? You are actually, killing the people. There will be time when there will be no people to use those charter project. 12,000 crore will be gone. That complete Joshimath will collapse one day and you will have no one to live there. So ultimately, the political populism, I think political populism needs to come down heavily.
So another concern, which is these lakes are also climate stabilizers, and at the same time, if you see, again quoting from Khurshid Naqib's article, which he was kind enough to send me, and he mentions that only 56% of the Dal Lake in Srinagar is now open water. Rest of it is you're talking about these floating gardens or houseboats and other things, and encroachment, illegal constructions within the lake. So tell me, what needs to be done now? We identified the problem. All of you have identified problems at the community level, at the government level, the problem of the mandate, lack of scientific reasoning. But what needs to be done? These are my questions to you, and then I'll come to Muslim.
Basically, it's important to understand these lakes are not merely lakes, they're wetlands as well. And wetland,
Hokersar, for example, you have.
even Dal Lake is a wetland. You have this Wular, it's a wetland. Hokersar is a wetland. It's not a lake, but it's a wetland. Dal Lake is a wetland. What's a wetland basically? It's in kidney. Kidney often, it helps in restoration. It helps in ground recharge. It helps in, for example, if it helps in puring the water. If you don't have these wetlands, the whole population.
It's like you have a water purifier at home. It's like
exactly.
Yeah.
Consider the wetlands, the lakes, Dal Lakes, and everything. Hokersar, Surinsar, Mansar, Wular. These are wetlands. Take them out of the equation. You are taking the kidney out of your body, and then you can.
Even the water arteries,
Exactly.
which has been blocked, making the urbanization.
So
into,
I'll just quote one thing from the report. It says of the 697 lakes which were surveyed by the CAG report, 315 already, that is 45%, they have already receded. And 518 lakes in entire Jammu and Kashmir have either shrunk or completely vanished. Do we need to take it very seriously, or is just a bureaucratic statistic?
I think also CAG is a body which is very independent, and this CAG has come down heavily. It has, heavily come down on the government. This basically it has criticized the government, the government bodies, that they have not utilized it, properly, the funds, that they have not performed well over the period of time. In 2023, NASA basically, they put out a photograph of Wular and Dal Lake.
Yes.
In 2023, I'm sure you must remember it. But what happened to that? Did we take notes? Now that CAG has come, we took notes. As you earlier said, it's episodic, event
driven.
reaction.
No, not a self-congratulatory chatter for Frontline, but we did an earlier program on cloudbursts also. We had a very distinguished panel at the time.
Come from Frontline and everything.
Yeah, so but it's like, ma'am, I just want to know from you, Again, on the doables, what needs to be done from the media perspective and from the civil society perspective? As you said, like about the khatibs, the sermonizers, what else needs to be done? What
Absolutely.
can
That's why I use the word we. It is a shared responsibility of the government as well as of the communities, because it is affecting the communities. It is affecting the society. So, I mean, it weakens the society at the same time. It weakens the communities because you have so many problems, issues getting from these kind of, because you have to have segregation of the waste. You have to have the biodiversity system in place. And the government has to be strict enough and be very tough on these kind of things so that they can make the communities responsible at the same time, and the communities themselves have to be responsible because it is their place, it is their which we are breathing in and out. So we have to see how our children are growing, in which climate, in
What
which
would you
weather.
say to journalism students who want to pursue environment as a beat? What would be your word of advice for them?
I think they should go for research. I mean, there is need of in-depth research for this environment, and it's the beat where you have plenty of stories, where you can, even as a journalist, you can be the master expert of your kind of the this subject environment. And there have been some students, in fact, Mr. Athar has been doing a very good job. Even Arif Shafiwani has done a commendable job on this environment. But two people cannot do everything. It is each and every.
I think to be fair, Kashmir Life has been doing a wonderful job.
Absolutely.
Doing in-depth reports on environment as well. So,
But see, it's not, again, I'm telling you, it cannot be symbolic. It's a day-to-day problem. There has to be a reward and punishment for kind of a thing. If I put a litter somewhere, see, you can see that I've been to Singapore. You cannot see even a simple dust or the small kind of वो चिलगोजे का दाग वो होता है ना कवर वो भी नहीं आपको सड़क पे मिलेगा, because the people are very sensitive about it. We have to be ethically obligatory towards kind of a thing.
Furqan,
It's an ethical responsibility.
got it. Furqan, for you again. For your generation, what are the doables? How you convince your friends, your colleagues, your family that this is important to save our environment is and has to be our foremost responsibility? What needs to be done?
See, I'll tell you about our society. I'm 21 years old, and I live in a society where a 40-year-old is called a young politician. So I don't think it is in our hands, because our elders never put this responsibility in our hands to do something about it. Yes, we keep the environment clean. Yes, we keep the surroundings clean. But if we talk about grassroots level, the government needs to act on it. If we talk about 2014 flood, the same ruling party as we have now was ruling that time, and there was no scientific assessment carried out as to why this happened.
There was a widespread devastation at the time.
Absolutely. No scientific assessment was carried out. And 20 to 25 years ago, this same government has said that we will, clear out the Dal area, we clear out the Wular area. But what has happened is encroachment proliferation.
Even in Hokersar, for example, it used to host a lot of migratory birds, even from Siberia.
Now
it used to be a sanctuary. Now,
The Asian flyway.
yeah, so
Central Asian Indian Flyway, it's called. So they do not come here. We'll say that migratory birds, they come and go. They do not come and go just for scenery, just to take a look at how we're doing. They come here for breeding. And if these wetlands are gone, it will affect their species. They can go extinct if we do not take care of these wetlands.
okay, well said. Mehboob, again, one, how to save this sort of colonization of our lakes? And second, what are your concluding thoughts? I know you teach, you mentor people, your environment is your favorite subject, but what else needs to be done apart from awareness? Because there is a lot of awareness, I think, already.
I think, as man always said that, that it does not have to be symbolic. It does not have to be rhetorical. I think it's very important that, first of all, the government is not able to do it, as I earlier said, that they need to go with the experts. Experts, as not the academicians per se, the practicing
Scientists.
the scientists,
Geologists.
geologists,
Yeah.
ornithologists, and other, issues which they are important for the survival of all this ecosystem. What's important is, for example, what government is doing. Srinagar is a smart city, but what is happening in rural areas? They are building. There is one rural district in Kashmir. I don't want to name it. They have built a sewage plant. It's not sewage plant. Basically, they're building a constructed building. That's it. And then the waste comes in. They dump it there. They dump one thing and then fill it and then dump other. You won't believe it is just 150 meters away from the most important river of that district. And when I talked to the concerned, this person in the office, he said that I can't do anything because we don't have funds. I told him, why did you make that? If you don't have funds to bring the machinery, why did you make this in the first place? He said that, "Filhal ke liye chalega." This "filhal ke liye chalega" will take our breath out of us and we will eventually have no place to live. And the colonization of
Water bodies.
water bodies is very important. We as a people need to understand that this is our place in neutral and we need to preserve it in as much as other things. And they need to take up this issue as an important paramount issue. If they want to vote next time, please vote on this.
There is also this concern, we have environmental activists also, but why do these activists also get active only, like for example, when a chinar tree is cut? They're not there when it happens. So only the hue and cry is raised. You had this Amar Singh College controversy. A lot of chinar trees, maple trees were cut down. In Bijbihara, for example, in Dara Shikau, you have this, whenever you have to do something, you just fell trees. I mean, we can't fix responsibility on one particular unionist group. I think all of them have done their part to actually contribute to not preserving.
This is not a blame game. There should be an academia industrial linkage. There should be academia politics linkage, academia bureaucracy linkage. These are
Synergy.
These are linkage. What is basically important is that basically there's a lack of research. I think ma'am would agree with me.
True.
This research is periphery research. It's a peripherization of research happening to particularly the environmental subject. We are all focused.
It has to be a public policy kind of a thing,
Public policy driven.
Absolutely, it should be public policy driven.
This report, it said that government has spent some 500 crores from 2016 till 20.
Yeah, the report was, I think they covered the period till March 2022, I guess. Yeah.
They have spent some 1% of the entire budget from
Yes.
5 crores. But you don't see the results. Again, the problem is that if you outsource that, I don't want to promote capitalism or privatization here, but it's very important if you can outsource it, and then your people, the officers staying in the offices here, they can learn until it becomes a process for us to handle our own. Because
Mehboob, Pirzada Mehboob, is there also this concern that those actually who have done a lot of research on these subjects, on preservation of lakes, they've also suffered at the hands of the powers that be once they did research or tried to do something about it, because there were political,
Absolutely. I told you earlier that there is this populist factor in this. As a researcher, if I want to Dal, say for example, and then I take a conclusive report from there saying that this person or this houseboat has done this, nothing to person or anyone, but this person has done this, or this is not
professional judgment.
Yeah, and I don't want to be subject. I'll be objective in my assessments. This person has, he's, putting the sewage into the Dal, for example, or Anchar Lake or somewhere, for example. And then I come out of the report, and if I submit to the government, what will happen eventually? So I told you there's a populist
Narrative.
narrative there. The government will obviously brush it aside. So people need to get active in this. However, having said that, historically we have seen, I think in a place like Kashmir, I think government needs to do more.
There is been
Will we be able to preserve our lakes? Last, concluding thoughts from everyone, just 30 seconds each.
Of course, yes, why not? It is we who has to be on the ground and work on these kind of things. Each one of us, one person cannot do it alone. It is each one of us, the communities, societies, and especially I told you, the Friday sermons has to be focused on this environment, because you have the society, the whole society is there when you have a Friday prayer. You have khutbah, you have the gathering there. So you can make
Yeah,
those...
we covered that. Furqan, your concluding thoughts.
Because
Green Tribunal.
They have issued a suo moto and they're waiting for the replies of all the departments, because there is a lot of fragmented responsibility. And I'd like to say that nature has the capacity to heal itself only if we allow to do it. So we need to kind of
Very well said. Nature has the capacity to heal it.
heal itself. So we need to stop encroachments. We need to stop sewage dumping. We need to stop waste, all these things at once. It is not about a future prospect. It has to be done now.
But nature has a capability of giving you back also what you are
Punishing you.
vandalizing, punishing you at the same time.
I'll say something. This Joshimat case I said, even Supreme Court played a spoiler in this. They allowed this to happen tacitly. Anyway, last comments: preserve, conserve, and revive. And then
Preserve, conserve, and
No, no, and government has
Thank
to
you.
be very responsibly work on this.
Thank you very much, Dr. Muslim Jan and Furqan, and also
Thank you,
Zada
Gowhar.
Mehboob. So I hope that this program on preservation of Jammu and Kashmir's water bodies, especially the lakes, the Wular Lake, which is also one of Asia's freshwater lakes, largest freshwater lakes, and then you have Mansar Lake, for example, in Jammu, and other lakes like Nagin and other Anchar, if we can revive it. So it's very important that all the guest speakers said that this is a shared responsibility. We have to preserve, conserve, and also make people aware, because this is our environment, this is where we live, and we have to preserve it for our own sake and for the sake of future generations as well. Thank you very much for watching Frontline Conversations. I hope that you are liking these programs. Give us your feedback. Thank you.